Hi, everybody. Welcome to Mastering Mental Wellness.
Hello,
Please,
everybody.
with my co host, Sir Isaac. People look and say, "What the hell with your names?" The chat named us this, so we just went with it.
Yes.
It works, right? We get to pretend to be loyalty for an hour. Just
Yeah.
pretend like we've been knighted or something,
Yes.
like we would qualify for that when we're not a British citizen. Um, but so,
Yeah.
how have you been, Isaac? What's been up with you?
I've been
School
doing.
started.
Yes, I've been doing pretty good. School started trying to keep up with the work. Well, keeping up with the work, but it's a big transition from summer to school starting. Yes,
God, yes.
90 to nothing.
You go from sitting around twiddling your thumbs, finding things to do, to
Right.
getting blasted from all directions and not
Yeah.
enough hours in the day to do it. Hi,
Yes.
Water Lily, and hi, Ramon, and of course, Ange was the first one here, so she
Yes.
gets
Hello,
the
everybody.
the ring a ding ding. I don't know. We don't have any prizes to give away, but there you go. Um, so today's topic is was picked by all of y'all
Hmm.
last episode
Hmm.
when we started talking about things and several
Hmm.
people were throwing things out, and Isaac and I really liked this topic, so we
Yeah.
decided to go with this.
Mhm.
And that's the kind of stressors that a parent or parents, if there's both parents are there,
Mhm.
undergo when you have a special needs child.
Mhm.
Anything from ADHD to severe physical deformities or something
Mhm.
that you have to work with.
Yes.
And at this point, I let Isaac take it away because he knows what he's talking about, and I do not.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Hi,
Well,
Gerald.
hello, Gerald. Yeah, Sherry, we see this sort of thing in uh, individuals all the time, especially caregivers. They, this is what I've seen, and I try to make it more practical so people can understand it. Most of the time, when there's an issue or something that we're dealing with, we work at it as if we're trying to solve the problem. Not that we work at it as there's going to be an end to it because I'm going to do something that's going to make everything right or everything is going to change and get more normalized. What we never work on it as like for the long haul. These are the strategies and techniques that I need to use in order to help the person get as or be as to get to a certain stage or get um, better and start to progress because it's just going to be a series of progressions. And especially with a child, when we institute a rule or a guideline and we see the child making improvements, we tend to think that that child is going to start to is going to stick with that improvement. But just like even a normal child, they sort of change. They sort of level out like, this
Yeah,
is okay, I've gotten used to this. So what do I do next? But really what they're doing is they're growing and they're changing. It's like they're experimenting with different things. It's almost like uh you can get a 2-year old to a certain point and you know what they're going to do and you know how they're going to respond. And then all of a sudden they start responding in a different way. And then we think, okay, you were doing this for 3 months and now you're doing something different. How do I stop this? Or how do I change this? It's really like being willing to make an adjustment. You make an
right.
adjustment to the changes, if that makes sense. And
No, yeah, no.
that can tire a
I've
person.
had friends and family who had special needs children,
Hmm.
and just watching the up and down,
Hmm.
uh, days for them. I
Mhm.
mean, Monday may be a wonderful day, everything goes smooth, no
Mhm.
issues, and Tuesday rolls around, and it's like all hell breaks loose. And
Yeah.
by dinner time, they're literally ready to pull out their hair,
Mhm.
or pull out their child's hair, depending on who
Mhm.
they get to first. It's
Mhm.
just because it's one of those days.
Mhm.
The the last place I lived in, here in town, before we found this apartment to live in,
Mhm.
my next door neighbor had a special needs daughter who was a grown woman by this point. I mean, she
Mhm.
was up in her 30s, but she had severe uh, uh, multiple sclerosis. And so, she was like curled up and
Mhm.
in a chair. And there were times when the hi Denise, there were times when um, the workers that would come and help, the caregivers
Mhm.
that would come help for whatever reason weren't able to make it that day or whatever. And she would need help trying to bathe her daughter,
Mhm.
get
Mhm.
her from the chair into the bathroom, into the bathing chair,
Mhm.
completely disabled people so she could bathe her.
Mhm.
And there were several times when she'd come knocking on the door, practically in tears, asking if I could come give her a hand,
Right.
knowing I wasn't supposed to lift anything. But I was like, no, no, we'll do this.
Mhm.
I mean, there were a couple of times when she came to ask for help and I wasn't home, and my brother was like, no, no, I'll come help you.
Mhm.
And he helped her. He's like, if she doesn't mind me seeing her naked, then
Mhm.
I can deal with help
Mhm.
getting her in the chair, into the
Mhm.
bath chair. And um and by that point in your life, I guess you're so used to different people
Mm.
seeing you in your birthday suit
Mhm.
in all different ways, they don't think about it anymore.
Right.
And so I know how difficult it could be. There would be times, and the thing it is, like with my friend, it wasn't even her daughter, it was her niece.
Okay.
But her sister couldn't deal with the fact that she had this special needs child, could
Oh.
not handle it, could not deal with it.
Mhm.
I don't want this child. I can't handle or deal with this child.
Wow.
And she became the parent. She took
Wow.
this child on as her own. And she
Mm.
was there, and she's like my age, she's
Mhm.
in her 60s now.
Uh-huh.
And she's having, and she took on this burden of taking care of this young lady, taking care of her niece.
Mhm.
And hi, Amanda. And so that takes a lot to be willing to step up
Mhm.
for a niece, much less, for your
Mhm.
actual
Mhm.
biological child. I mean,
Mhm.
um, I know when she first told me that it wasn't her child, it was technically her niece.
Mhm.
I was like, wait a minute, where's her mother? She said,
Mhm.
oh, she comes by once a week or once every 2 weeks to
Mhm.
come and do her maternal hi, how are you? And then she leaves.
Wow.
And I was like, and you've raised this girl by yourself all these years? She's like, yep. It's,
Mhm.
my sister couldn't deal with it, couldn't handle it. So she just walked away, and
Wow.
somebody had to take care of the girl. She's like, I wasn't going to put her in a home.
Mhm.
I just couldn't do that.
Right.
She was my flesh and blood still, even
Right.
if she was a niece. She was
Right.
still my blood relative.
Right.
And so, I just saw through her
Mhm.
how difficult it was taking care of a special needs child that wasn't even her own,
Mhm. Mhm.
but she stepped up anyway.
Yeah.
And it's like, if anybody ever deserves to go to heaven, it's her. And I told
Yeah.
her that once. I said, I'm sure when you get to those pearly gates or whatever you believe in, there's
Mhm.
going to be an entire cloud full of angels that are going to be singing and clapping
Mhm.
to you for doing what you've done.
Right.
That's right. She'll be blessed for unconditional love.
Yeah.
And but I saw how exhausting. I mean, there were times when she would have one of the nurse workers, hospice nurses that would come to spend time with her, and she couldn't leave. She didn't have a car,
Uh-huh.
so she had to rely on other people to take her to the store, or
Mhm.
rely on them to just go buy their groceries and bring them.
Right.
And a lot of times when she would get that 10 or 15 minutes of break time, she'd come knock on the door if she knew I was home, and
Mhm.
we'd go sit and just visit. Whatever I was doing, I would drop it, just
Right. Right.
whatever you need.
Mhm.
And so we don't. When I moved, she moved just before I did. It
Mhm.
was a bad situation at the old complex where we lived. They had
Mhm.
bought the new owners had bought it, and they were not doing people right, and a lot of people were moving out.
Mhm.
And so, but we're still only about 2 miles from each other.
Really?
She's just right down the road.
Uh-huh.
And I feel guilty all the time because I keep saying I need to go by and visit.
Mhm.
And then I just get so wrapped up in everything I'm doing that I
Mhm.
never get over there,
Right.
So
Right.
I know I was messaging back and forth with her the other day, and she was like, Casey said to tell you she misses you and she would love for you to come see her.
Uh-huh.
I said,
Uh-huh.
tell her I promise I will come.
Uh-huh.
As soon as I can get a free weekend, I will come.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah, caregiving is a big responsibility for
it
anybody.
is.
And I think that's why people have to develop strategies, develop a support system, like you say, because some people don't have any time away from it. They maybe have to have someone come in and care. That would have been a good thing for that mother to do, come in and give her a break so that she could take care of some things or just,
Yeah.
be out. Uh, like
Um,
even if you go to a specialist, they can give you a lot of resources and give you a lot of tips on what works best with the child or what works best with the person that you're giving care to. It's a huge responsibility. That's why industries have developed around things like this. Because I know with special needs children, a lot of times universities will have like daycare or like schools where they
mhm,
can educate the child in a environment that is, non-threatening, and the
yeah,
parents can come into the environment and learn as well. So that's the sort of thing that I'm thinking because most of the time when we have something like this, depending on what type of person you are, it's like, I need to handle this or I can take care of this, but
right.
we all need to seek help at some point, and
Absolutely.
that's
Well,
why I
that was
think.
like taking care of my mother, which after a while was like taking care of a full size toddler, you
Yeah.
know.
Mhm,
Um, I mean, it got where she was wearing diapers, and we were
mhm,
having to do everything to care for her.
mhm,
And uh, uh, that's why we all moved in together. Me, my son, my brother, his son.
mhm,
We tag teamed it. It was
mhm,
like my son took the brunt of it during the day. He was there all day while we were at
mhm,
work.
mhm,
And when we would get home from work, we would give him his break. Okay, now you're done. Go do
mhm.
whatever to unwind, and we would take over at that point. And I hear you, Water Lily. I was doing that yesterday. I was listening and doing laundry at the same time. I
Mhm,
do it all the time. Um,
mhm,
but yeah, it can be. I mean, when I was a child, I remember one of my cousins, my mother's sister's oldest son.
mhm,
He was about a year younger than me,
mhm,
and he had severe autism. Like,
mhm,
he was nonverbal, not he could grunt and groan and scream, and that
mhm,
was the extent of his
mhm,
vocabulary. And he would go extremes from being calm to being hysterical. You had to practically tie him down to get him
mhm,
to try to calm down if something
mhm,
freaked him out.
mhm,
And so I can remember growing up with him, And, even as a kid, and same with his younger brother, he had
Mhm.
my aunt had another child about 2 years younger,
Mhm.
and just trying to learn how to navigate that space around the oldest boy,
Mhm.
because you never knew what he was going to do.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
and so, but you can't spend all your time tiptoeing either,
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
um, but I know, just as especially for single parents,
Yeah.
just raising normal kids is
Yes.
hard enough. I mean,
Yes.
I watched my mother raise two of me and my
Mm.
brother by herself,
Mhm.
but she had a support unit. She had, her mom and her stepdad that were there. If
Right.
she needed something, all she had to do was say the word, and they would, you
Mhm.
know, do whatever they could to provide that need.
Mhm.
And but I can remember how exhausted she would be at the end of a long day.
Mhm.
Just working all day and then having to come home to us at night,
Mhm.
trying to cook and clean a little bit and deal with us bickering and fighting. My
Mhm.
brother and I fought like cats and dogs when we were kids.
Uh-huh.
6-year age difference, and it just, yeah,
Uh-huh.
we drove my poor mom crazy.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Yeah.
but let's see if you want
Mhm.
to. I went ahead and did this as a share screen.
Okay.
Um, so that this is a website, and I think I forgot to put it in the chat,
Mhm.
but I forgot to put it in the um, description box, but I'm gonna put it
Mhm.
in the chat here. And then that way, if you know someone or if you yourself are dealing with it, here are some really good tips
Mhm.
for how to care for a child with special
Mhm.
needs, to help alleviate some of that stress.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I know, uh, you got like communicate with specialists, make a list of needs, spend quality time with your child,
Mhm.
find ways to manage stress,
Mhm.
plan ahead for changes, um, talk to the school's administration.
Mhm.
Uh, just out of personal experience, that plan ahead for changes seems to be probably the most important one,
Mhm.
because most of the people I've ever known that deal with this, that's the point. It's like the explosion point for the child
Mhm.
or the grown adult who is now like a child.
Mhm.
Um, Changes disrupt their whole world, and they
Mhm.
can't handle it.
Right.
Everything. I think of the movie Rain Man
Mhm.
and how he expected, no matter where they were, for his brother to stop so he could watch uh, Judge Judy, I think it was, and something else on the TV that he saw every day at a certain time
Uh-huh.
from the home that he was in.
Mhm.
And it really pushed home to me when I started going through this plan ahead for changes, because they
Mhm.
don't handle change well.
Yeah.
In order to keep them, what's the word I'm looking for? Calm, I
Mhm.
guess would be a good way to put it.
Mhm.
You don't deviate from the plan.
Yeah.
They know this
Mhm.
happens. That's the order it goes in. And if you
Mhm.
switch something or
Right.
remove something or add something, it
Uh-huh.
freaks them out.
Mhm.
Especially if it's a mental um, disability,
Mhm.
not necessarily a physical one. Most
Mhm.
physical ones, kids learn to just go with the flow, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. And Cherry, the talking to the school administrators, uh, usually it's going to be a specific teacher that may have
Yeah,
a class with special needs. They're going to have a lot of resources. I think the big thing for most people is the reaching out part, because it's like that's almost like another responsibility, and not
Right.
realizing that if you do it gradually and, in small bits and pieces, you start to learn something different. You start to find more resources, because a lot of times
Right.
some of the kids with special needs, you can't see what the special needs are. So people expect that child should behave like all other children. And if they're not, they
Right.
think they're misbehaving. But there are specialists out there in all areas, and a lot of them are really good at what they do. And they have a lot of
Yeah.
passion and compassion for what they do. So I think we should
Yeah.
find the specialists. Okay.
Oh, exactly. It's trying to number one, it's letting the school to know what kind of child that they may be dealing with,
Mhm.
as opposed to making sure that people understand that they don't trigger that child that
Right.
could set off
Mhm.
an incident,
Mhm. And you're
I mean,
advocating for your child.
right, exactly,
Mhm.
exactly.
Mhm.
Um, okay, that's it for that one. So I
Mhm.
guess I'll pull
Yeah,
that.
you're advocating for
Um,
your child. If something goes on and you're there and you're interested in how can we work together to make sure that this works better, because sometimes you're going to feel like people are not like forthcoming, or they're not
mhm,
helpful. I think you just continue to go back and say, no, let's figure out what we can do. What can I do? What can we do working together to make this turn out the best for everybody concerned? And I think the person starts to realize then that this person is invested in this.
right. Yeah, it's finally knowing that there's somebody that has your back.
Yeah, yeah.
And help you out with. I can remember my cousin, Troy, the
Mhm,
one that was severely autistic.
mhm,
If any time that we would go over to visit, if I
mhm.
had, I know most of the women of a certain age will remember these, the little pink sponge rollers that we would put in our hair to make it curly. We would roll. They were like usually about this big, and they were pink, and they were made of sponge, and so you could wrap your hair around it and put your hair up. And if I had any of those rollers in my hair, something about them would trigger my cousin.
Mm,
And he would freak out and start yanking them, trying to yank them out of my hair,
wow.
thinking that the best we could figure out is he thought it was hurting me.
Oh.
Because the minute he starts yanking on them, I started screaming because it hurt. And my aunt finally, one day, I was at the house and she was curling my hair for my mom. So when my mom got off from work and came and picked me up, I'd be ready to go to wherever it was that we were going to that night. And she had just finished rolling my hair. And Troy walked in and he starts to freak out. She was like, from the get go, no, come here, come here. And she got him to come over to her and sit in the chair. She took a little roller and she just clipped it. And the little bit of hair that he had a crew cut. But she managed to clip it and get it to stay. And the minute she clipped it, he could touch his head. And he looked at me, and then he went and looked in a mirror at the curler in his hair. He was perfectly fine with it at that point.
Wow.
Never tried to yank him out of my head again,
Oh.
nothing. But we just had to put a curler in his hair too.
Uh-huh. That's
So
interesting,
that
isn't it?
and it just, I don't know what made my aunt think of it,
Mhm,
but just something in the moment. And she was like, come here, let me put one in your hair too. So you can
mhm,
see it doesn't hurt.
mhm.
No one's getting hurt with this.
Yeah,
Um,
that's
and
interesting.
that takes a lot of deep
Observation.
introspection, I guess, of
Yeah,
trying to
yeah.
figure out
Mhm.
what it is. I mean, they would have to lock him in his room at night. They
Wow.
had locks on the outside of his bedroom door.
Mhm.
And they would have to lock him in at night because he would get out of bed and would go on a rampage through the house, just
Okay.
freaking out because it was dark outside. And, you
Mhm.
know, is the best they could figure.
Mhm.
And so it was like his bedroom consisted of a bed, and that was
Mhm.
it. There wasn't anything
Mhm.
else in there
Mhm.
because they were afraid he'd hurt himself with something.
Yeah.
But yeah, they had to lock him in every night because he would
Mhm.
go into these screaming fits when it would start getting dark outside.
Wow.
And so, whatever it was that his brain was providing that fear for him, I don't know if
Right.
they ever figured that out.
Mhm.
I know decades later, whereas my aunt and uncle had gotten divorced and he won custody of the children because he owned his own business and was stable, and my aunt wasn't. And after my aunt had passed, like I said, decades later, I was living in Phoenix, and my mom had moved to Phoenix with me
Mhm.
after I'd been there for a couple of years to come stay
Mhm.
with me.
Mhm.
And out of the blue, she gets a letter from the younger brother who finally tracked her down. And he'd been trying for years and didn't know, where's my mom, whatever happened to her. Of course, we'd tell him she's already passed by now. She's,
Mhm.
remarried and has another son. And, but
Mhm.
I know my mom was really thrilled that he reached out. Hi,
Mhm.
Tea Garden. Um, and it just always struck me as he truly had no clue where his mother was, how to find his mother. Didn't
Mhm.
know she had remarried and had another family, and
Mhm.
uh, but he started looking for my mom and figured it out, from there.
Mm. Mhm.
And I think, they had several long conversations on the phone,
Mhm.
questions that she could answer about his mom that only she would know
Right.
to a certain point,
Mhm.
And that's when we found out that shortly after they had divorced, and we're talking back in the mid to late 60s.
Uh-huh.
So there wasn't a whole lot of understanding of this stuff back then.
Exactly.
They had to put him in a mental facility, a
Mhm.
home,
Mhm.
um, nut house, I guess is one of the ways they term it.
Mm.
People call it
Mhm.
because it was too much.
Mhm.
You know, the father finally realized just what my aunt had been going through dealing with this child.
Mhm.
Suddenly, he was having to deal with it, and
Right.
but
But that, like you say, from the 60s until, and people are continuing to discover things, and they're having different protocols for treating mental health. Mental health
right,
is like, I think that's why some people have a resistance to admitting that they need mental health treatment. Or some people say, I don't
yeah,
believe in counseling and things like that. I think they relate it to the things that have happened in the past that were not
well,
very
they
that were
see
not
it as a weakness.
right, right. Because it's like the way people would have been treated, people were just doing the best they could with what they knew at the time, because they didn't have a good understanding of these disorders. Back in the past, have you ever heard of the term "ship of fools"?
Hmm.
That term came from, like, in around England. I forget when it was. Probably the could have been the 1600s. They would put a group of mentally ill people on a ship, and they would set it adrift. And wherever they landed at, that's where wherever they crashed at, that's where they were. And people didn't know. People would often, like, restrain people to their beds or in the basement because they didn't know how to care for them.
Yeah,
And then along came medications that sort of helped, and now they're understanding more and more, and that's why we need to get connected with specialists, because they have a lot of
yeah,
information about what works and what doesn't work, and they can tell you, what your chances of getting better are. So
right.
I think we need to take advantage of the resources.
right. Yeah, just to let me put it this way. How do people on the periphery, family member, friends, whatever, we know or see someone dealing with this,
Mhm.
what is the best way that we can offer to help
Uh-huh.
kind of across the board? What are the best steps to take or the
Yeah,
best way to ask to help without,
that's
um,
a that's a good question because most people think, well, I'm just gonna leave it alone. I'm not gonna say anything. I think we should say something, especially if a family member speaks to us or confides in us and tell if they say something like, okay,
right,
this is so difficult. I stayed up all night. To me, that's somebody inviting you in. And I would just be honest with them and maybe ask, "Have you ever talked to anybody? Is there a specialist?" And sometimes people do have, specialists, but they don't follow the advice. And we could just
yep,
say, "Well, you remember they said that you should do this or you should get involved in this group. Did you do it?" And just ask them, not trying to force them to do it, because all of us, we have to hear something before we decide to do it. You're not
right,
gonna walk up to somebody today and say, "Oh, you need to join that support group," and they do it tomorrow. They have to
right.
process it. They have to process it before they do anything like that.
And a
And
lot of people tend to go out of their way to hide it,
yeah, yeah.
so you're not even aware that they're under these stressors.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um,
Mhm. That's
that
true.
that's where having professionals in
Mhm.
the office where you work
Mhm.
or in the classroom where you teach,
Right.
um, that's where that comes in handy,
Mhm.
is having that ability to say, okay, I just can't, I need help,
Mhm.
and then be the one to be there to step up and help.
Yeah, that
Uh,
that 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 was a great suggestion. The great question, here. You know what we call that when people are trying to hide it? That something is going on? We call it they're trying to present well.
yeah, because we all try to put our best foot forward.
Right.
You can be
Present.
sick as a dog, but you're going to dress up, put on makeup, and go to the doctor. And
Uh-huh.
when they walk in and say, "Well, how are you doing?" You
Mhm.
don't say, "I feel like crap and I think I'm dying." You're like, "Oh, I'm
Right.
okay."
I'm okay.
And they're like, "Well, obviously you're not. You're here to get checked."
Right. Right. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I think that's how we can support family members, is just be open about it and ask, "Are you doing okay?" Or even point it out, Sherry. You look stressed a lot recently.
yeah,
Just
you're
point it
looking
out
really
to.
tired. Do you need,
Right.
maybe you need to
Uh-huh.
take a nap or something.
Uh-huh. Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, that can be, because it's like for those of us that want to help, it's hard because you don't want to intrude at the same
Mhm.
time.
Yes.
Because unfortunately,
Mhm.
a lot of people would take that as
Mhm.
being pushy or trying to get in their business or that kind of stuff. And
Mhm.
in most cases, it's just simply because somebody
Mhm.
is needing that little bit of extra, or they need that day off, or the day
Mhm.
at the spa, or get their hair cut, or
Mhm.
get their nails done, or go see a movie, or whatever the case may be.
Mhm.
Um,
And look in
that's
the comments. Look in the comments, Sherry.
yeah,
Lunar love and light. Society normalize how society uh says, like, especially for mothers, they feel, yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a real thing. And I think
yeah,
mothers of children, they probably need to start being more direct with people, because really, if you want to get rid of a person, you just tell them the truth. It's very difficult, working all day, coming home, preparing the meal,
yeah,
making sure that everybody is doing well. People try to normalize that and make, especially women, feel like that's normal. Everybody should do this, but everybody does not do that. And I think
Right.
even the person who's doing it needs to realize, no, I'm going above and beyond when I'm doing things like this. And you have to acknowledge that to yourself. It can be done and you won't have to do it forever, but you have to acknowledge it to yourself that, hey, I am uh doing my best and I'm doing a good job at it. That's what I
Yeah.
think. That's what I think. Because some people will try to make you feel like you're not doing enough.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you get a lot of these self-righteous folks that want to come along and tell you, well, you need to be
Right.
doing this or you need to be doing that. And it's
Right.
you can literally watch the hackles go up on somebody thinking,
Yeah.
F you, what do you think I do all day long?
Right. Right.
Not like I'm sitting here eating bonbons watching
Right.
soap operas. Yeah, I
Right.
mean,
Right.
it's hard work to take care of a special needs child.
Yeah. It's hard work to take care, like you said earlier, it's hard work to take care of just normal
A
children.
normal kid.
Right. Yeah.
Well, as normal as kids can be
Uh-huh.
anyway.
Yeah. And that may mean that you have to say no to some people because if people know that you'll work, they'll especially if you're in some type of organization, they'll make
Mhm.
sure that you work, but you have to know when to say, yes, I can, and no, I'm not going to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Setting standards in place of what you will do and how you will do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think about the fact that, granted, my son wasn't raised by a single parent, and me and his
Hmm.
dad were both there,
Hmm.
and it took both of us dealing with stuff all
Hmm.
day, every day. It's like
Hmm.
there were times when I would sit back and think, how the hell did my mother manage this on her own?
Right. Right.
And what were her stress reliefs?
Hmm.
Because she always, I think her stress reliefs were all the marches she went on.
Uh-huh.
Civil rights, equal rights, women's rights, gay rights, whatever.
She would do that?
Oh yeah, I can't name
Wow.
how many I went on with her.
Wow. That's
And she was the black sheep of the family because of it. I mean, um,
what they say, she's at it again.
yeah. Well, most of them we didn't even associate
Okay.
with, very rarely.
Mhm.
Um, but just they most of the family couldn't understand why she didn't just go find a man and get married so he'd take care of her and her kids.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
it's not that easy. And she
Mm-mm.
didn't want to be married. She was
Mhm.
not
Yeah.
happy as a married person. She'd already
Mhm.
tried that route twice.
Yeah.
It didn't work.
Right.
And and if she dated someone, if they liked me, they couldn't stand my brother. If they liked my brother, they couldn't stand me. And it's like, well, if she's going to get serious with somebody, she had to find somebody that accepted both of her kids
Mhm.
for how we were.
Mhm.
And we didn't make it easy because we were both like, yeah, no, if he
Mhm.
moves in, I'm moving out. I mean, that kind
Uh-huh.
of thing. Um, I know I never wanted her to get married again because I didn't want to upset the apple cart.
Uh-huh.
We had a flow, everything.
Right.
It was exhausting, and I had to do a lot of things to help
Mhm.
her take care of stuff. But
Mhm.
nonetheless, it was a
Mhm.
stressor all the way around. I mean,
Mhm.
uh, uh,
Uh, lunar love and light, what I would say to you is just do your best. Your best is good enough. You have to assess yourself, learn to assess yourself realistically and not think about what other people think you should be doing. Because
exactly.
whenever we change and try to do what other people approve of, we have to keep changing because they keep changing their mind and it will
Right.
bind you up. Do what works best for you. As long as you're supplying shelter, food, the basics, you're doing good.
Yeah,
You really
exactly.
are.
I mean, there were many a night we didn't eat anything but rice and beans because it was cheap and that's all we could afford.
Mhm.
I mean,
Mhm.
which is why I won't eat a pea or a bean to my name today. But I
Uh-huh.
had to eat them when we were hungry, but I'm not eating them now if I can find
Yeah.
something else.
Yeah.
But but yeah, I mean it's hard. I know when I run into somebody that's like taking care of a parent or something,
Mhm.
I always make a point of telling them, make sure you schedule time for you.
Mhm.
Go to a movie, go to the park, go visit friends,
Mhm. Mhm.
go get a mani and a pedi, go get a
Right.
haircut.
Mhm.
Whatever's going to make you feel relaxed and good
Right.
about yourself,
Mhm.
go do that
Mhm.
at least once a week.
Yeah.
Um,
And
just so that you're not, yeah,
a lot of us just want some alone time. Whatever works for you.
exactly. Go lay on the beach for a couple of hours. That was back when we lived in Florida. Well, that was an easy go-to. We'll just go hang at the beach for a couple of hours.
Right.
Don't worry about it.
Mhm.
And hi Clarence. But yeah, I mean
Hello,
it
Claire.
there's a lot of there's a lot more avenues, I guess, today to get
Mhm.
help than there
Mhm.
were back when
Mhm.
we were kids.
Yeah.
That kind of help, they just locked you up in an institution.
Right. But you know one
And
thing,
then
Sherry, what you were saying, the self-care, a person has, if you're caring for someone else, it could not just at home, it could be at work. You need to care for yourself. You need to practice self-care so that you can do this for the long haul. Because if you get burnt out,
right.
you
Oh,
it's like,
absolutely.
yeah, other people are going to be affected by you not being able to do what you normally do. The caring for other people, you can develop a system for yourself that enables you to do that and take care of yourself as well. It's about a balance, and these are things that we've talked about before.
Right. Yeah.
Hmm.
I'm sitting here trying to go back over my notes
Yeah, are you? Are
as
you?
you're talking. Um,
Yeah.
because I know we did a show just on stressors. We did one on
Hmm.
holiday stressors. We did one on just normal everyday stressors,
Yeah.
anxiety,
Hmm.
all that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
But man, you add on a special needs child to that, and
Hmm. Hmm.
it's overwhelming to a power of 100. I mean,
Right.
and I can't exactly say how I would react to something like that because
Hmm.
I've not had to deal with that.
Hmm.
But like I said, I've had friends and family that have.
Hmm.
And yeah, it's hard. I mean,
Mhm, mhm,
it's really difficult to you see so much, and this was my problem, like taking care of my
mhm,
mom, is there were so many other things that needed to be done to be caught up with that
mhm.
for me to walk away and go to a movie or go hang out with somebody, the guilt level was so high because I
Yeah,
wasn't there taking care of the other things that needed
right,
to be taken care of.
right.
But at the same time, I was running myself into the ground,
Uh-huh.
not admitting that I needed
Mhm.
to take a step
Right,
and just unplug and get
right.
away from it.
Mhm.
Um, trying to think, I can't
Mhm.
think of anything else to
Yeah.
add to that.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
what are some of the what are some of the things that people have mentioned, not only in our chat but with other shows that
Mhm,
we skirted around this kind of
mhm,
topic?
mhm,
Um, what tends to be the standard reaction, I guess I would say,
mhm.
for someone who suddenly is straddled with a special needs child?
This you
And
know what I would you
do they care for that child differently than say their normal children?
Mhm.
You know?
This is what I would say to you, because as human beings, we have so many um emotions, so many thoughts that we sort of like keep under wraps. If we're frustrated, if we're
Right.
stressed, things like that. I think a
Yeah.
person, and what I like to do is just not just for myself, but for people that I work with. I'm like, I need some insight, or this person needs some insight into what they're feeling, what they're thinking. And then you can make a decision. Because when it's just whirling around in your head, you may think, oh, I'm a bad person. Like you say, I
Yeah.
feel guilty for going to the movies or whatever. It's like you can do like a therapeutic letter to yourself or to the person that you're caring for, and just say whatever you want to say. Because, when we start talking to other people, there's some things we're going to say, I'm not going to say that. I don't want anybody to think bad of me or think that I'm a bad person.
Right.
But when you clear all that stuff out, you get to make a plan. When you don't clear it out, it'll just keep popping up. And
Yeah.
we're all going to be frustrated about some things. We're not all just like we're not like Buddha or Jesus. We're not going to be able to hold. We'd be an angel if we made those feelings last. We just can't do it.
Exactly.
We're
You
human.
can strive to be like them, but you'll
Yeah,
never be them or
yeah.
reach that level, I
We're
believe.
human. We have to
Yeah.
we have to tap into what we're feeling or thinking about and gain some insight before we can let it go. And we can say, basically I got it all out. Every time I think about this, you know what I think about? Uh confession in the Catholic religion.
Yeah.
You get to I
Do
think
penance.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's a good thing. You get to put it out, you get to speak about it. In my mind, it's like it's not in me anymore, just running around. I've let it go. Now I can think more clearly about what's going on, and I can make plans. And I think
Right.
that's what we need to do. Even though, you talk to you can't some people can be open and talk to friends and say, I'm feeling like this, I'm feeling like that. But you also have to add on to it. This is where I what I plan to do going forward. And you'll come up, you don't realize how much information you have on board that you'd never really tapped into.
Right. Right. Right.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
I'm sitting here racking my brain.
Hmm.
I know several incidences. My nephew has Asperger's.
Hmm.
So with him, it was more the socialization
Hmm.
skills because he's super smart,
Hmm.
like scary smart.
Hmm.
Um, and my brother and his ex, they found a small charter school in one of the little towns next to us
Hmm.
that dealt mainly with kids like him.
Hmm.
And he started going to school there. And 4 years later, when he finished going to school there,
Hmm.
the difference was night and day
Hmm.
in how this child was able to react to people. And he'll never react the way most normal people react to things because his
Hmm.
brain just doesn't process it that way.
Hmm.
I think that's a big thing for people to understand. When
Hmm.
it's any kind of a mental deficiencies, their brains don't process information
Right.
the same way our brains do.
Hmm.
It um, easily triggered. It might take hours, days, weeks, months, years to
Hmm.
grapple with the big change that happens in your life.
Hmm.
I know with me, with my mother, it was really difficult to step away. I know the first time I did that was my brother convinced me to go to the Hindu festival that we have here in town every year for the
Hmm.
Festival of Lights, the Festival of
Hmm.
Colors,
Hmm.
where everybody throws all the colored stuff in the air so that
Hmm.
everybody's all the same. And I had a wonderful time spending the entire afternoon there. And the minute I got home and stepped foot in the house, the guilt was just like somebody tied chains around me. It's like, oh, you know, I felt the guilt for going out and having a good time, you know. But it took my family to say, you've got to get away for your sanity, or you're going to be taking care of you too, you know.
Right.
So
Right.
step out, go do something. And so yeah, it's what did Lunar say?
Yeah, being isolated. You know what I would suggest?
Very isolated.
A
Yes.
support. It is isolating because not everyone can talk about the subject of what's going on, but you could find like a support group online that you could meet up with. They'd have a lot of information about what they do, and it's going to be familiar to you. And all it is with us as human beings is about getting more information so that we can do something different. It is or learn something different, because as human beings, most of the time we want to know things, and it depends on how we incorporate the information. Some people want to make changes and quickly. Some people make changes more slowly. It you don't have to judge what's going on. You just have to be aware. You don't have to judge yourself, and really we shouldn't. It doesn't serve us.
Exactly.
Just assess yourselves realistically. Am I doing my best? We all know if we're doing our best or not. We do.
Is there an area I need to improve on?
Yes. Yes.
How do I incorporate people to come in and share the burden with me for this?
Right.
I think is another important, you know, of how to express. And for a lot of people, it's very hard to ask for help like that.
Yeah.
It was like, how do I swallow my own pride and step out and say, okay, I need help. And then to follow through and get that help for your own peace of mind. Whether if it's a babysitter or somebody come to your house and paint your toenails, I mean, whatever it is that you need done, it's just having somebody else come and sit with you while you deal with a child can make a big difference.
Well, you know, one thing too, Sherry, I think there's a lot of things that people are capable of. And I think, like you say, asking for help, know when you need to ask for help, what situation. Yesterday, I was at Home Depot and I was picking up some material because I'm going to put a shed over this crooked little sidewalk thing that I got going on. I've been putting it off for a long time.
You're going to fix it, make it look pretty.
I'm going to fix it. And I was there loading it up, you know, strapping it down on my little trailer so that I want to make, because I had to drive pretty far. I don't want anything to come loose. And I had saw this guy ahead of me in line. He had gone outside. He was loading up his stuff. And I'm like just loading, you know, like, because I'm like under the shed. I'm like, I want to get out of here before somebody else has to pull in. And I went to put up my little cart and I saw the guy, he was wielding a piece of drywall. And if you know anything about drywall, it's heavy and it's not in one sheet, it's two sheets.
And it breaks very easily.
Yes, two sheets back to back. And he was balancing it. And I was like, okay, I got you. And I was like starting to help him put it in. And I was like, okay, I forgot how heavy this stuff was. And then I noticed he had already put one sheet in. And I'm thinking this guy's like me. He can probably do things alone. He can figure it out. But sometimes you just need help. And he, you know, he was very appreciative. And he said, I had that call for the people in the store, but they didn't send anybody out. I used to work in retail and, you know, they're going to understaff in retail.
Oh,
But
yeah, especially on
saying
their
all
busy
that,
days.
yeah, to say this, know what you can do that you've got strategies for, but know what you might need help with that's gonna take out more energy. And that and I've done that. Like, I can build stuff by myself, and it just not a big deal because that's the way my mind works. How can I do this?
Right,
But I had to learn that when I need help, I might have to ask somebody to come in and help. And I think
exactly.
that's what we all have to learn. And it's I don't know if for me, I wouldn't say it's about my pride, or it's more about I can't figure out how to do it alone. I don't know what to call it yet, but it's like, I think we need to examine ourselves to see
Yeah,
why we are not asking for help, especially in really difficult situations. Mhm. Okay, 3. I'm reading this.
yeah, that's why I keep looking down, going over my notes here. Um,
Okay,
I'm trying to think.
okay. And
Yeah, lunar. See, that's where you lucked out because you had an early intervention
yeah.
to help you smooth that path and to go forward.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, yeah. This is one thing I think in that situation, you have to be realistic, or since you've had the intervention, they're pretty much telling you what you can expect. It's going to be about acceptance and how can I live the best possible life with my child, and knowing what the prospects are going to be for the future. It's
right.
just an adjustment. A lot of people are not able to do that. As we know, as you say, one person just walked away. That she's not the only one. A lot of people are not able to do stuff like that. But some
Yeah,
people are. We can figure it out.
exactly. Um, I can't think of anything else. I think we covered everything we kind of
Mhm.
were
Yeah.
looking at on this. Most importantly, I would say to wrap it up is ask for help.
Mhm.
If you don't know who to ask, check with your doctor or
Mhm.
the local
Mhm.
principal or something at the school where your child goes if there's been problems, and they can help point you in the right direction. Now
Mm.
there's the website, was it betterhealth.com,
Mhm.
that you can go to, and they will help you locate someone to talk to in your area, is
Yeah.
what they're set up to do.
Yeah. Mhm.
Um, so that's a good thing. You're
Yeah.
not, it's not like it was 20, 30, 50 years ago when you just dealt with it and there wasn't anybody around to help.
Right.
Um, to being able to know that I can lean on this person
Yeah.
for an afternoon to give me escape.
Right. Mhm.
I can take this little class over here to help me cope better. And if push comes to shove, I can pick up a phone and call
Mhm.
somebody
Yeah.
to help.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
anything else you want to add to that?
Mm-mm. Mm-mm. Just do your best. Your best is good enough. But also in the equation, self-care. Take care of yourself. Have stop, some type of indication to know when I'm not taking care of myself well, and be able to stop and do that.
And it's your child on top of it, or
Yeah.
your niece or nephew or whatever,
Yeah.
grandchild. There are a lot of people our age that our grandparents that are now saddled with taking care of their grandkids because the parent can't deal.
Right.
And just leaves, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I know a couple of grandparents that they're the ones that basically their grandkid lives with them 24/7, and they're the one that does everything. So
Yeah. We never know what we'll be called to do.
Exactly. So next week, Isaac and I are going to set up and have how to handle stress from dementia patients. Wasn't that what we decided for next week? Yeah. And then if y'all have any ideas of other topics you would like us to cover, shoot me an email. Let me know. I'll run them by Isaac and we'll set them up and schedule them. If I get enough suggestions, I'll post a poll and put it on my community tab. Y'all can vote on it. We didn't vote for this episode and next episode because last episode with the chat we came up with 2 topics. We're like, okay, we'll do those next. And so that gives everybody time to think up some more topics for us, and we'll go. I'm so thoroughly blessed that Isaac jumped on board with this when I threw the idea out at him saying, how would you like to do?
Yeah.
And he's like, count me in, I'm there. So yay. So yeah, it's
I'm just comfortable with you, Sherry. It just worked out.
Well, that's it. I'm comfortable with you. I mean, we've known each other now for what, God, almost 3 years.
Yep.
So it's been a while. We actually met via the Soul Sisters channel.
Right.
They had an open mic night and we were both invited on at the same time.
Yes.
And something just clicked and we became friends and we've been buddies ever since. So you just never know. And then we found out we're like next door neighbors. He lives in the state right next to mine. So hopefully soon we'll be able to actually physically be able to go visit each other.
Yes.
And we'll do a live stream together in the same room. That'll be fun. So thank y'all for coming today. Thanks for all the input. Y'all have all put in a lot of ideas and suggestions. You shared a lot of information. I mean, Isaac and I kind of look at this of, you know, what's said here stays here unless you decide to share it.
Yes.
You know, we're not out to try to make you a poster child or, you know, brandish your information around. I mean, it's on a public stream. So it's not like somebody can't come in and watch and see what you said, but we're not tooting the horn over it, you know, other than just come in when we have a show and we try to let the chat be as open and expressive as possible. So that, I mean, we've had some shows where it's been truly illuminating what's come through from the chat.
Yes.
And people really opening up to each other and sharing past hurts and kind of helping each other heal.
Yes.
That's in the hour that we do this. So yeah, that's our whole goal.
Yes.
If you're dealing with this issue, if you know someone that deals with this issue and they don't know where to go to for help, start with betterhelp.com. It's like nationwide. You can give them your information, your location, and they will be able to provide you with a list of people and or services to fit your parameters in your area.
Yes.
Wait. So yeah, that's all I can think of. Half a second here.
Okay.
Okay, sorry. My son's getting ready to leave. He was trying to tell me something. He's hanging on the bedpost on the other end. So if there's anything else, I can't think of anything else.
I can't think of anything.
So we will see y'all in 2 weeks. We will be back on the 22nd. We're here every second and fourth Sunday of the month. So we'll be back on the 22nd, and we will be talking about how to handle the stressors of dementia parents that you take care of. We kind of touched on it a little bit today, but and it kind of runs hand in glove together.
Yes.
So but it is different. There are different stressors and different ways to deal with it as opposed to the child. So we'll get into all of that in 2 weeks. So any final words, Isaac? Anything else?
None. Self-care, self-care, self-care. Take care of yourself.
All right, folks. Y'all have a good weekend. What's left of it anyway.
Yeah.
A good week. And we'll see you in 2 weeks.